Hello, teachers, and welcome back to another school year with the School District of Osceola County, Florida. I am Dr. Dave Maddock, Research and Evaluation Specialist in the Office of REA, and the primary support for the eduClimber platform in Osceola County. This year, we're going to be utilizing eduClimber to an even greater extent than we had in years past. I'll talk more about that soon. But I just want to start off today's session with how to get into eduClimber and where you can find the support that you need to feel comfortable and successful in the eduClimber platform before we dive in to what we're going to be doing with eduClimber this year and take a deep dive into logging and recording student interventions in the eduClimber platform. So first, as a reminder, while you can get to eduClimber through the website educlimber.com, with our district ID 2031, the easiest way to get there is from ClassLink to click the School City button. When you click the School City button, as this loads up at the top center of the page, you'll see the word Launchpad. Clicking on the Launchpad will allow you to go to various places within School City, and it will also allow you to click the eduClimber button, which will take you directly into the eduClimber platform. As you can see here, from the Launchpad button, we're going to click the eduClimber button, which will log us directly in. If you receive a notice that says your account does not have permission to access eduClimber, or please contact your system administrator, it's a very quick fix to change it. However, you will need to put in a support ticket requesting for your account permissions to be fixed. To do so from ClassLink, you will find the Support Request button, which takes you to the new district platform Incident IQ, where you can request help and support with various platforms. Once you've been logged into here, you will click New Ticket, make a request for software and online systems, and find eduClimber from the list of available resources. After selecting eduClimber, you can request for help with accounts or logging in and say that you are having trouble with your teacher account. From there, we will be notified of the ticket and we will go and fix your account on the back end. You will also notice from here you have the chance to address any issues if you have a student missing, if you're seeing incorrect student data, or if you're requesting additional training on the platform. This system allows us to quickly and easily manage the tickets and get you the support that you need. If you have any questions about how this works, please ask your school tech. Now, we're going to jump right into eduClimber. Here it is, the welcome home page to the eduClimber platform. Notice that I don't have any student pictures showing or student names because I'm in something called top secret mode. If you ever need to share this overall information with another teacher maybe who doesn't have access to see your students, you can turn this on by clicking your username in the top right, user preference, and you can turn on or off top secret mode. This is also where you can set your school to your default so that it automatically always goes to your specific school. And you can set a default data wall if you don't want to keep resetting specific searches on your data again and again throughout the course of the year. We have lots of videos available if you're looking for a specific issue that you need more support on or training in the Osceola Research Evaluation and Accountability YouTube. From here you can select playlists. You'll find all sorts of videos, including this video, So You Want to Get Started with eduClimber, which is a 3-hour introduction to everything available in the platform. All the other videos, such as So You Want to Log In, or you want to recommend a student for MTSS, or you want to look at and score a behavior point sheet, videos are generally under 3 minutes long and cover very specific skills that you might be looking to understand. Additionally, once you are within the eduClimber platform, Renaissance Educator Academy is available in the top right which provides longer courses on becoming an expert in the eduClimber platform. And from the dropdown, you can also select Knowledge Base, which takes you to written text articles about everything that you can do with the platform if you prefer to read your resources rather than watch videos. I bring this up because today we're only going to be focusing on very specific parts of the eduClimber platform, namely Students 3D with tags and interventions. Diving into Students 3D, just remember that you should be able to look up all the information from your school, perhaps a particular grade level, and see which students are assigned to you. I bring this up to note that you might see more students than you have access to in focus in a specific class period. The reason for this is usually that you have a homeroom, a lunch period, or an intervention period with other students scheduled to you. If you find that to be the case, there are two easy ways to remedy this issue. The first, you can always filter on courses. When selecting this, you will see your name from the drop-down, and selecting your name will allow you to filter to a specific one of your class periods, where the rosters will then match what you see in focus. Additionally, if you don't want to constantly be filtering to specific classes, you can also select a group of students and you can apply a tag to their account. When you apply a tag, such as period 1, period 2, or whatever you want to name it, this stays on the student account and allows you to always filter your data down to that specific set of students. You may notice that students already have tags, such as Reading Tier 3, or perhaps something that your school has done, such as Varsity Football Player. These tags always allow you to quickly grab, filter, and organize your data without having to repeatedly filter down to specific students every time you access the platform. One other important thing to note from Students 3D is that it's really great for understanding what your data looks like in your classroom. So looking at this third grade grouping right here, I'm going to apply an assessment filter to check what the best data looked like for these students. Of course, I'm going to shift it over to fourth grade so that we have students who took the best assessment last year. And then I'm going to apply an assessment filter. From here, I will select the best assessment, and I want to look at the ELA assessment and Progress Monitoring 3 from last year. From here, I need to select the school year that I want the data from, and then I can click Apply, and I will see students appearing who took the assessment last year. Clicking the Excel spreadsheet icon in the top right and hitting the drop-down will show me the scale score that every single one of these students received. If instead of the scale score, I wanted to look at something such as student levels on the assessment, I could click back over to the overall layout, return to my filter, which is up here in the top left, and then I can tell eduClimber that for my target set, I want to look at the fast scale, and for my descriptors, do I want above or below level 3, or each individual level, or just some levels, such as only level 1 or level 2. Applying this will now give me the same information on my layout, showing me what levels these students received rather than their scale scores. Returning to my bubbles, note on the left that under my grouping functions, I have a new function called Fast Best ELA, which if I click, will group my students into the levels that they received. I can similarly split my students on gender, on English language learner proficiency level, on their disability status, or returning to those levels. Now what I'm going to do is give you some work time to log into eduClimber, open Students 3D, look at your class for this year, and check what their assessment data looked like last year. If you're in third grade or below, please note that you want to use the STAR assessment. If you're teaching high school juniors or seniors, you may want to look at the ACT data that students produced over the course of last year, or their STAR assessment data taken in the spring. I'll put 5 minutes on the clock. Go ahead and begin. About 30 more seconds to finish up your data analysis. Okay. Hopefully you had a good time learning about your students that you're going to have in your classroom this year. And now we're going to spend time looking at how we set up, record, and log interventions for these students in your classroom. The majority of this can be done from the Interventions tab on the left side of the eduClimber platform. This looks like two hands holding up a small heart. But one thing I want to show you before we dive into there is that from the Students 3D page, if you are able to identify a small group of students that you want to work with, you can highlight them by clicking and dragging the orange box over that group of students, the same way that you would add student tags. Check the box of students, and you can click Intervention from the top right. From here, you click Add, and you will see all of the students ready to be added to your intervention. So if you know a group of students that you're going to be working with, and you don't want to recreate the intervention multiple times, this is one of the ways from the outset you can apply an intervention to multiple students. For now, I'm going to cancel that intervention, move over to the Interventions tab, and we'll look at the Interventions landing page. When you arrive here, you will see quite a few what we call modules to look at your student intervention data. In the top left, you have your overview of all intervention plans that are assigned to you. If you're a school coach, such as a reading coach or an MTSS coach or a school administrator, you'll see all plans assigned to students within your school so that you can accurately help and support the classroom teachers in giving their students the intervention support that they need. In the center module, you'll see the implementation fidelity, particularly the participation rate, which shows what % of assigned interventions you've taken attendance for during the school year. In the top right, you'll see the progress towards goal tracker, which will show you which students are meeting their expectations in their interventions and which ones are not. It's very important to note that when creating an intervention, if you don't set a goal for the student, they will appear in the No Goal Set section of the Progress Towards Goal. In the bottom left, you'll see a very similar tool to the top right. However, this is the Point Sheet Goal Progress, which records measured behavior intervention plans, trackers for ESE accommodations, and other interventions in students' resiliency skills. The bottom right will show you how many students have exited from an intervention, and the far bottom right will show you your overall intervention tools, particularly recording attendance, entering monitoring scores, tracking behaviors, and looking at all interventions assigned to you. We'll return to all of those, but right now we're going to create an intervention using this button in the top right. When you click New Intervention, you can select a student to add. All your rosters for the 24-25 school year should be in eduClimber, and they should match what is currently in focus up until 8 p.m. the night before. We're going to pick a school, and I'm going to find the student. I know the student that I'm working with's top secret number, which is how I'm searching them. But when you're doing this, you want to search for your student's last name, comma, first name. Please note that any hyphens or spaces in their last name do come over from focus. So if a student has a last name of, say, Colon Garcia with a space between their two last names, Colon space G will help you find them from the drop-down. If I were to search by the student's first, then last name, such as Robert Colon, that would not find the student. Selecting Robert would show me the list of all students named Robert. Colon space Garcia would give me all students with that last name. But selecting his first space last name would show me that there were no students in that manner. Now that I've selected the student or multiple students, I'm going to click Add, and it will take me into the Intervention Details page. Here, I can select who the interventionist is. If you are a classroom teacher setting up an intervention for a student that you are working with, you would select yourself. If you're an MTSS coach or an interventionist at a school-wide level setting up an intervention for someone else, you can select someone else from the drop-down list, which you will see appear here. Again, eduClimber uses last name, first name. You will soon have the ability to select additional interventionists to an intervention if you so desire. Next, we want to pick the level of the intervention. Is it a Tier 2 intervention, which is a support given to a student who is behind the core, generally 6 to 12 months, or a Tier 3 intervention, a support for a student whose gap is usually greater than a year? These interventions align with specific resources from our reading decision tree, our math, our science guiding documents, and our district behavior and MTSS plans. You can also identify if you're working with a student for enrichment as an emergent bilingual, or if you're specifically trying to give interventions from an IEP, such as tracking the accommodations given to a student. For the sake of today, I'm going to select Tier 3. Now I pick the skill area. I can provide interventions in literacy, math, science, social studies, and specials. Two other options here. The first, combined performance, will give you overall platforms that cross systems such as literacy and math, like Khan Academy or the school-wide enrichment model. And behavior will give you a series of interventions, both behavioral programs and behavior intervention plan trackers, which will usually be set up by someone at your school, such as an RCS, a behavior specialist, or an MTSS coach. Today, I'm going to select literacy from the dropdown. Now eduClimber will smartly assign all the available strategies from the reading decision tree in the tier list. Notice this year that if you used the platform last year, there were far more interventions available because they were broken out, such as comprehension, phonics, phonological awareness. This year, that same information will be recorded when you take attendance for the intervention, and as such, we've drastically cleaned up the list available for you. The same is true in math for interventions such as the Osceola Numeracy project. I'm going to select the University of Florida Literacy Institute Foundations Intervention, and now I can give it a name. Please work with your MTSS coach to see what your school-wide naming convention should be for your interventions. However, you'll automatically be recommended a name. Please note that overwriting this however you want, such as Maddock First Period Tier 3, will still record the intervention name overall so that I have access to that data in the future. Now I need to record how long is this intervention going to occur for. When setting up the start date, you should set it up to be the day that you plan to begin giving the intervention. So in this case, I'm going to say after the start of your testing is done, August 26th. And then how long do you plan for this intervention to go until? For the purposes of this, let's say until December 13th for this intervention. Please note that when you are looking at the progress monitoring for this intervention, it will base the goal on when you set the intervention to end. So an intervention set to end at the end of June will have a much more gradual slope and less aggressive goal than one set to end in December or even May. Then I can say how often I want to take attendance for this intervention. For example, if I believe I'm going to give this intervention on Tuesdays at 8:19 a.m., I can select that, and now eduClimber will build an attendance schedule for me that asks on Tuesdays at 8:19 a.m., did I provide this intervention? You can adjust the end time for it to give you a longer recorded measure of minutes. You can also change the intervention to be as needed. For some programs that only have, let's say, 10 sessions, you can simply put in there's a number of sessions that are going to occur and have no preset date for when this is going to be measured. Next, we move into the monitoring. Monitoring builds a tool for you to record all of your monitoring data that occurs in an intervention. The purpose of moving this into eduClimber is to reduce all the excess binders, Excel spreadsheets, paperwork, and data that we have in various places across our classrooms and campuses so that we have a one-stop shop to have all our progress monitoring data for reviewing tiered placements for students, grade decisions such as what program students get into, or even evaluations for exceptional educational services. So it's really critical to set this up properly to allow you to record the data into eduClimber. First, the monitoring user is who is going to be entering the data. If you do, as a classroom teacher, do not set yourself as the monitoring user, you won't be able to enter the scores on your own. Next, we need to enter the monitoring type. Some monitoring, such as Achieve 3000 or Dreambox, comes in on a monthly basis into eduClimber. Other assessments, such as the STAR Reading assessment, will appear whenever the STAR assessment is taken. We do have one special class of progress monitoring called the PM colon assessments, such as PM Literacy or PM Mathematics. These are hollow shells for you to enter scores in however you best see fit, and put the agency back on you as the classroom expert to understand what data you're putting into the system. So for the purposes of this intervention, I'm going to say that we're doing a comprehension intervention. Next, I'm going to set up the date that I want this measure to begin and when I want it to end. The time simply tells eduClimber to remind me at the set time on certain days that I haven't recorded my data yet. The real key here is how often you want to enter the data. If I were to say I want to enter this data every week on a Friday, when I go to enter my progress monitoring scores on Fridays, there will be a space for me to put that score in. If I were to say every day of the week, I would get a row for every single day of the week. But if I say something like every 3 weeks, then every third Friday from the start date is when I will have the ability to enter my progress monitoring data. For the sake of today, I'm going to say we will enter this on every Friday, and I will set a goal of 70 points because I know my progress monitoring measure is measured on a scale of 0 to 100. Finally comes the review schedule. If your school has already set up a specific meeting, such as Elementary Tier 3 Reading PLC, you can assign this intervention to that meeting, and eduClimber will smartly inform your coaches and administrators that a student's data needs to be reviewed to see if placement changes need to occur. Since I'm not going to be assigning it to a meeting, I'm going to click this, and I'll tell myself to review this data once every 3 months. Finally, I'll click Add, and that will create this intervention. Now for you, I'm going to give you time to go in and create your own intervention with one of your students, but please note, I don't want you to click Save. Clicking Save will actually create the intervention, which we don't want to do. You can get to this point, click the X, and then cancel your intervention. I'm going to click Save for this sample so that I can come back and show you what it looks like to take attendance. I'm now going to give you 5 minutes of time to create your own intervention. So please click Interventions, find one of your students, and create an intervention for them. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed having the chance to practice recording an intervention. And now finally we're going to talk about the tools you have once the interventions are made. I do want to note two things here. First of all, the reason we're sharing this information about tracking and recording intervention is that as of this school year, there's a new Florida law that requires us to communicate directly to parents in writing on a monthly basis about the progress their students are making if they're identified as receiving interventions. We will be doing this through the eduClimber platform, which will automatically send out a record of the data that has been recorded in the system for an intervention. So it's important to note that if a student is scheduled for an intervention and the data is not being recorded in the platform, the letter that automatically goes to parents will say, no data was recorded during this time. So we do want to make sure that we're putting the progress monitoring scores into eduClimber if a student is scheduled to be receiving an intervention. The other thing that I want to note is that when we talk about taking attendance in eduClimber, the only requirement for taking attendance is when you are working directly with a student. If you have an intervention such as HD Word in the upper grades or Lexia in the elementaries, and a student is sitting at a workstation working on that intervention platform, you're not required to take attendance in eduClimber for that. We have Focus for that daily attendance data, which does come into eduClimber. What we do want you to take attendance for is when you pull a student away from that workstation and work directly with them to give them the intervention support that they need. For example, when working with Lexia, you might use the resources from the platform to pull a group of 3 students together to work specifically on a set of phonics development. In this case, you would take attendance for the 3 students that you work with, and now we have a record of what was done with those specific students, how much intervention they received aside from generally having access to resources with the classroom, and the ability to communicate to parents all the great work that we are doing on top of our Tier 1 core instruction with their children. So eduClimber serves a purpose completely and functionally separate from taking attendance every day in Focus. Now, to take your attendance for your intervention in eduClimber, in the bottom right, where you see the Record Participation/Attendance button, you'll open your module, and you'll see which students are scheduled for the current day. Remember, the intervention that I scheduled doesn't occur until in August, so I need to select the day that the intervention will be occurring on. You can use this tool to take attendance for interventions that happened earlier in the week if you know you need to go back and record data, or if you're going to be absent for an intervention in the future, you can do that as well. Now I see my student is here, and I can select the area that we worked on for that day. Let's say we worked on phonics, and I can mark her attendance. Let's say she was present for that time. Note that in the top right with the lightning bolt, you can quickly update all students for an intervention for a day. So let's say I pulled a group of 5 students for my intervention. I want to mark them all present. I can do so. The marking procedures complete or not will impact these blue squares on the left, saying, yes, I did all of these. We'll mark that we worked in every single section. So now I've got a record here that says we worked on phonics for 15 minutes. Intervention attendance is very quick and easy to take, and all you need to do is take it when you work directly with a student. Please note that we are asking you to do this instead of keeping Excel spreadsheets or large binders of paperwork, which are not reliable in MTSS meetings, meetings with parents, or ESE evaluations. Next, I want to show you entering monitoring scores. Remember, for this student, we set up a monitoring score saying that we wanted to record her data during the school year. To do so, I need to click on a day that I scheduled her monitoring to occur. If I had set it for every day, I could pick any day of the week, but since I set it for Fridays, I'm going to go to Fridays. Now I have a space for all students whose monitoring measures are set up to enter those scores. If you set up your system to say all students get progress monitoring data entered on Fridays, you would see all students right here. Now I can enter a score of something such as a 70, and that'll be recorded. If I had multiple days that I needed to go record the data for, I could go to one of those future days and enter that score as well. It's also worth noting that rather than entering percentages, you can enter the total correct and the number of errors, and eduClimber will determine what the accuracy was for the overall. Here it can tell that this was a 5-question assessment, therefore it was an 80%. When that intervention data is recorded for students, you can go to the student's profile to see all of their overall data. You can do this by clicking the student profile button in the top left and searching the student last name, comma, first. I'm going to set this to last year to show you the large amount of data that exists on every student's account. Here I can see that the student has multiple tags, comments left by teachers, and smart forms that have been generated, as well as attendance data. If I were to click on one of these assessments, I would see how the student has performed across time on the various instances of the assessment taken. But the thing that I want to focus on today is that the intervention that we created is right here on the left. When I go to this, I can see the number of times that I took attendance for the intervention and that progress monitoring. Notice the very large negative projected score that I've made. This is because I went from scoring 0 out of 100 to scoring out of 5, which makes a very large change in the graph. If I were to go back and change this score to a score of 80, which I can do by clicking the ellipsis in the top right and hitting enter scores to adjust the total data that was here for the student, my graph will now update and look exactly like I was expecting it to. It's important to note that we want to enter our data in the same manner across every single instance. Now I can see on this progress monitoring track that with a goal of 70, the student's progress is very likely to exceed this goal. Switching over to other interventions that were actually progress monitored and implemented in the school district in the prior year, we can see that this can be very useful for seeing if the student is achieving their goal over time. With all the students in this data cluster here, I can see what the attendance was for the interventions, which students were not on track to meet their goal by the end of the intervention, which is measured by the red X, which students were on track, measured by the green check mark, and which students we just don't have enough data on, or who are too close to call, which is reported by the question mark. If a student has multiple interventions, you can scroll down to see the other interventions. Under Plan History, where you see the recorded attendance, if you click it, you'll get a nice pie chart of when the student was present, absent, when you were absent, and if you had unscheduled interventions or campus occurrences. This piece of data, along with the progress monitoring track, and with a note saying that we are always doing far more than what is shown specifically here, will be what's included in the letter that gets sent home to parents through eduClimber. We do want to note, we understand that there are scores of non-recorded times that you work directly with students to intervene in their educational outcomes. We're just trying to ensure that we have high fidelity data to report to the parents to show the times we did specifically work with their students in addition to our excellent Tier 1 core curriculum. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today to learn a little bit more about eduClimber, recording data, and tracking those interventions. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Dr. Dave Maddock, and ask for additional support. Don't forget that we have our So You Want To videos that really dive into many of the other things that eduClimber does as a platform, and that you have access to the Incident IQ support request function through ClassLink, the big red plus, to request additional training within the eduClimber platform, to ask for corrections to errors that you notice, or to request new and additional features to be brought online so that you have access to more reliable and more useful data in order to meet your needs in the classroom in the future. I hope that you have an absolutely excellent 24-25 school year, and together we're going to really improve our data outcomes and therefore our educational outcomes for our students. Enjoy day one.